Hi, welcome. Welcome, especially those who haven't joined us before. We've got a couple of new faces, which is lovely to see. And what I'm going to briefly talk about tonight, and we're going to start a series of talks where we're looking at what I call keys to your intuition. So ways or things that you can use that help you to access the intuitive wisdom that is found within you, or the part of you that taps into wisdom that's universal or beyond you. And quite often, the thing about intuition is not that we don't have the capacity, but it's like a muscle we haven't exercised. And if we haven't exercised, it's a bit slack. And it's also about confidence. I think if you've got an idea that you're not very intuitive or you're not very good at these sort of things, that can be a real barrier. And so sometimes by using things that help with that, you start to get a bit of confidence working with your intuition, because it's working with your mind and with your awareness in a very different way. And as you get more confident with that, through maybe using some of the keys we're going to cover in the next few weeks, you will start to be happier just to go in there, say, in meditation or in contemplation, that sort of thing. And the other thing that seems to happen is as you start to use some of these keys to the intuition, it really starts to open up. I would say that your intuitive voice, wisdom, guidance is coming into your awareness all of the time from your higher self, from your soul, from your connection to a universal mind or a universal field of energy that's intelligent. And the problem is that we have so many thoughts running in our mind. Our mind is so busy, we miss those little gems, those really magic gems of intuitive wisdom. And that's why quite often when we quieten our mind down, perhaps through a process or a practice of meditation, or other, practices that bring us into the moment and bring us into our awareness, what happens? Those thoughts quieten down, and the space between them, that creates space between them, and into that space, that intuitive wisdom can pop in, and we'll go, oh, why didn't I think of that? Why couldn't I work that out? And I think I told you last week or the week before, sometimes if I'm trying to work out something using my intelligence or using my intelligent mind, and I can't understand it, or I can't get a solution, or I can't fathom it, instead of keeping on at that process now, I'll just abandon it and go for a walk. And go for a walk and connect with nature and just feel like I'm expanding and watching what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, I'll be hurrying back because the answer to the problem will have popped into my mind as a complete whole, and I've got to get back and write it down before I forget it. Because it doesn't come in the way that usual thoughts do. It comes more as a whole concept or a whole understanding, and it's not always in words. Sometimes it can just be a feeling or I need to look at this from a different perspective. It's not logical or linear. It's usually bigger picture. And so the language of the intuition is quite a different language. And the definition of your intuition is basically that which you know to be true, irrefutably true, even if you don't understand it or know where that truth has come from. But it tunes in, it taps into an innate sense that we all have within us to recognize truth. And because we are truth, we can recognize truth. And that's why we often get a sense when something isn't quite true or isn't quite the full truth. And we have this capacity. But like anything, if we haven't developed it and we haven't worked with it, it may not be as sharp as it could be. So working with the tarot, with tarot cards, can be a way of sharpening that intuition, if you like that, and connecting with it to gain those insights. And it's quite fun, but don't underestimate the power of the tarot. Okay, I mean, you can look up the history online, but people have been using tarot cards since about the mid-15th century, I think, and only the late 18th century, about 1750, they started using it for divination or for predictive, to try and explain or answer big questions people had in their life. So I'll just go through a little bit about the tarot. I'm just going to assume that you don't really know anything much apart from the idea that it's a pack of cards with pictures, and that we probably associate it with fortune telling rather than using it in a more scientific or a more purposeful way. So the tarot is divided up into what's called the Major Arcana and the Minor. And the major are 22 cards, numbered 1 to 21, plus the 0 card, which is the Fool. And they, if you bring up a Major Arcana card, that means it's a big deal. It's a major life issue, or it's a major message. It's much more important and in a bigger scale and a broader view of what's going on in your life. And then you have the Minor Arcana, and there's 56 cards, sometimes called pip cards. And that's divided into 4 suits, each having 14 cards. And in the 14, you have 1 to 10 numbered cards and 4 court cards. So it's just like a playing deck of cards. And you have a king, a queen, a knight, and sometimes called a jack, sometimes called a page. And then those 4 suits in the Minor Arcana are divided, and they're divided into areas of your life, or it's not so much areas of your life you may be looking at, it's more qualities. And I'll just read out some of the words associated with each of the suits so that you can get a feel, because it's not up here that we work with the tarot, it's here. It's a feel for it that we need to develop. So for example, the first suit is swords. Now, swords are very yang energy if you're looking at it in a Taoist point of view. So they're very masculine, action and doing out in the world. Swords are about thought. They're about justice, ideas, the legal system, about communication, logic, truth, analysis, decisions. They include worry, death, grief, pain, conflict, and loss. So when you get, some people don't like the swords cards because they're cutting. It's associated, the tarot have associations with many other keys, and swords are associated with air. You can cut through air, but air is also associated with the mind and thoughts. And then you move into the other yang or masculine suit, which is the wands. And the wands are sometimes called batons, rods, or staves, depending what deck you're using. So these are yang as well. And these are fiery. Okay, this is competition, action, growth, power, taking risks, courage, inspiration, your creative fire, that sort of thing. So wands are more that kind of fire energy, if you like. Then the 2 yin or feminine suits. The first one is pentacles, and sometimes called discs or coins. And these are associated with the earth. And this is often, people associate these with money, with resources, with being grounded within the earth's energy. But they're not just money, because a lot of the readings I've done, pentacles can come up when there's an issue with energy. So if you think of money as just a form of energy, an energy exchange medium, you can see that pentacles has a broader meaning. But pentacles associated with things like prudence, with business, with money, with learning by doing, with your common sense, your possessions, your work, with the five senses, with your roots and connection to the earth, and with the material world. But they're also associated with the care of the body in terms of our body as part of the material world. And then the last of the four suits is the cups. And this is another yin or feminine, and cups are water. So cups tend to be the flow of emotion and things flowing. So cups are to do with holding love. They're to do with sharing and connection, sharing a meal, with pleasure and joy, with anything to do with the heart, with your emotional intelligence, with your connection with others. They're very much about healing, especially in terms of emotional healing. They connect with your dreams. So you can see that between those four suits, you're covering most aspects of life, and there's a lot of room in there to ask a lot of questions. So whenever you do a reading, there are numerous ways to do a reading, and you can get some books on this and experiment with this yourself. And it's not, you don't just ask a question and have one card. You can ask a question and ask for just one card to give you the answer, but usually you'll ask for perhaps 3 cards. And so the answer is not just about that card, it's that card also in relation to the cards around it. So for example, you might frame a question about a particular issue in your life, and you, as you're shuffling the deck, and this is the key to the tarot. The real key is how well you ask the questions, because you will get the answer to whatever you ask. So if you don't ask it very well, you won't get a very good answer. So maybe you might be shuffling the cards and you might be saying, you know, perhaps you've got a conflict with someone in your family, and I want 3 cards. I want immediate, what's just been, immediate past. I want what's going on right now, and I want some help with the immediate future. And you're being very specific. You're saying, I want these 3 cards, and I want to look at past, present, future, and help me with this issue, guide me with this issue. And you will, that way the cards will, their relationship to each other will come in, and you'll get a much clearer picture. So there's lots of different decks. The most, I suppose the original, the deck that I like using is called the Rider-Waite deck. And it's, I suppose, the original. There's another quite popular deck that the occultist Aleister Crowley and the Golden, I think it was the Golden Dawn, were associated with the Thor deck. It doesn't really matter what deck you use. I can remember seeing, I had a Native American Indian tarot deck for a while, because it spoke to me. The way that they presented it spoke to me at the time. So the key with a tarot deck is when you go to buy one or purchase one, it talks to you. So it's like when you're buying crystals, you don't go into the shop deciding what you're going to buy. It's the one that jumps out at you and says, I'm your crystal, you need me. And it's a bit the same with the tarot decks. There'll be one that you're pulled to, and your mind might be saying, no, I want this one because of the history, and something else pulls you to this one. It's this one that's the right one for you, and because you are working intuitively. Tarot's aligned, not just, it doesn't just bring in this wisdom of the pictures on the cards. It's aligned with, for example, the Chinese 4 elements, which I gave you, the earth, the fire, the water, and the air. You can align it with the Taoism, with the yin and the yang. You can pull in certain cards align with, if anybody's ever used numerology, different cards. If you work out your kind of predictive horoscope with numerology, different cards. I've read something where Carl Jung in psychotherapy was brought in to the tarot, and there was an association there. The Kabbalah is often used in conjunction with the tarot. Different cards relate to different parts of the tree of life. Runes are used alongside the tarot, and often people will use dowsing to clarify questions that come up from the cards, things they want more information on. Tarot also aligns powerfully with astrology. Certain planets are aligned. Each of the major arcana cards are aligned with certain planets. Just for example, sorry, not each of the arcana, each of the planets are aligned with different cards. It's the other way around. So for example, Aries is aligned with fire in the Emperor card, Gemini with the Lovers and air, Taurus with the Hierophant or the Priest card, and the Earth, Cancer with the Chariot, this sort of thing. And not only the signs, but the 7 of the planets are aligned to various cards. And the houses in astrology, when you look at first house, second house, they're aligned. Certain cards, tarot cards, fall in the different houses. So for those who like sort of going into it deeper and the analytical, there's plenty to learn. But what I would say is it's something that Aleister Crowley, who people have mixed opinions on Aleister Crowley, because he was very definitely an occultist who was perhaps working more with darker energy than lighter energy, although that's disputable. There's lots to read about that. But he said something which I would agree with. And he said, the skill of the tarot is in its practice. So I'm really, compared to most people, very new to the tarot. I've been working with cards just for my own self and my own life, probably for a couple of years. And I'm only just beginning. When you first use them, you know, you get your cards and you might get yourself sort of some books. And these are the 2 that I've been using. This one in particular I like because it gives you each card, and it gives you the astrology. It gives you different people's interpretation in terms of different decks. It gives you the Golden Dawn. It gives you the all different ways so that if you had different books and different decks, they might give you slightly different analysis of that card and what it means. And this book gives you them all so that you can find your own way, if you like. This one is more sort of it's a beginner's book. It will more talk you through what that card means and prompting you to have a think about how that relates to your life. So I find the 2, for example, so when I first started using the cards, I was too scared to sort of look at them too much. But now what I've found with using them longer, I'm quite happy. I mean, you know, it's pretty evident what this one's talking about. Do you know what I mean? But even you start to get an idea, you know, some cards will have choppy water on one side of the character and smooth water on the other side. Sometimes there's things off in the distance. You know, sometimes they'll have, like, these are the cups, these are all upright. Some cards will have 3 cups that have fallen over and you're focusing on the negative, but 2 are still standing. Do you see what I mean? They have different animals and creatures in them that mean different things. And so as you get your confidence, for example, the Tower card, you know, many people would think, oh my God, I've got this card, this is doom and gloom. But it doesn't mean that. It can mean that some structure in your life or something is coming tumbling down to enable you to build a new structure, something that serves you better. And the lightning bolt can be the bolt of inspiration, the sudden understanding that, no, this is not right for me in my life anymore. I need something new. And the Tower card comes up at a time when you're in major change, and it can be a very positive card. For example, I'll give you an example, and I'm sure she won't mind. A friend of mine was asking, you know, should she sell her house? And we got the Fool card, and it's like, well, is that foolish? No, the Fool card is very much, it's this happy-go-lucky fool stepping over about to step over a cliff. Little dog barking saying, beware, beware, use your common sense. And the Fool card is yes. Throw caution to the wind, go for it. This is a big life. It's a 0 card in the Major Arcana. This is a big life change, but just keep your wits about you. Make sure you've looked at all the possibilities. Make sure you've thought it through, and then go for it. So the Fool doesn't mean you're being a fool. The Hanged Man doesn't mean that you're a hanged man. It can ask you to look at it the other way round, to look at it from a different perspective. So you see the pictures more and more now. I find I will just look at the pictures and see what comes up for me before I even go to the books and look at other people's interpretation. I'll start to trust some of my own interpretation in relation to what's going on in my life, because that's the key. So what you can do when you do a reading, there's lots of different layouts that you can do. You can do big layouts. You know, you can have a big 12 card layout, and each card in each position, if you wanted a sort of almost like a life review, where am I at the moment? What's going on? And, you know, different cards will relate. This is the major issue you have at the moment. This is the card. This is the bridge you're crossing. This is the card that once you've crossed that bridge, this is where you'll be. This is some of the obstacles. This is some of the things that are going to help you. This is the one you need to focus on the most. So you can have a reading that's like that, or you can have a reading that relates to time. So like I said before, past, present, or future. You can have lots of readings that work with your horoscope and things. So the key to the reading is knowing what question you have. What is it you want to know? What do you need help with? And the clearer you can be on that, the better the insights that you get. And that's something that with experience, you get a feel for that. The other thing, your tarot deck becomes quite attuned to your energy. So it's a good idea to kind of, like, even if I'm doing, you know, I just help friends occasionally, I will still shuffle the deck and ask them to tell me when to stop. But I like to handle my own cards because there is an energetic relationship between you and the cards. So some people will just splay the cards like this and ask you to just take a card, the card you need the most right at this moment, and just take a card. So there's lots of ways of dealing with it. Sometimes when you're shuffling and you answer a question, a card will just fly out and people will say, that's the card you need. It's made itself very clear. When a card is reversed, when it comes out upside down, many of the books will tell you a slightly different take on the meaning. It's often can be that there's more of a challenge, or it's a reversal of the main meaning. And the idea is that with each of the minor arcana, with each of the pip cards, that we progress through the decks. So as you go up a number, you're moving through challenges and you're growing spiritually, psychologically, emotionally. So there's that idea. It's an increase in the lessons learned, if you like. Now, there's a real question about time. Can you ask the tarot, like with my friend, can you ask the tarot, when's the best time to sell my house? When will my house sell? That sort of thing. And there's mixed ideas about how accurate it can be. But if you have a time frame in mind when you ask the question, that can help. It's suggested that wands are associated with the spring, cups with the summer, Swords with the autumn, and Pentacles with the winter. And in terms of how fast something might come about, Wands is very fast. So Wands tend to be more like hours to days. Swords are hot and airy. They're fast, days to weeks. So, but Cups, cold and watery, they're more like weeks to months. And Pentacles, it's more like months to years. So there's a bit of perseverance and patience required. So there's mixed feelings on that, and you can, if you want to start, the key with using tarot cards is to be like me when I first just went into the shop and bought some and bought a book, and I just thought, I'm just going to have a go. I don't really know anything about this. I'm not going to go and try and learn up all the cards, because you never keep all the information in your head. Well, I think perhaps if you've been doing it for 20, 30 years, you probably really know the cards. But the best way to get to know the cards is in just using them. And get yourself a good book, get yourself a pack of cards, and just start using them. Just start developing a trust and a relationship with them as a key, because all of the insight is coming from you. They're just drawing that out. So it's not like the cards inherently, these cards inherently don't have any kind of magical power. I think the suspicion that's been around the tarot, it's the work of the devil, and it's, it will predict your death and you'll die next week. And this sort of thing has been to do with the fear. And a lot of it was in times when people weren't encouraged to take responsibility and control for their own lives and for asking the questions. They were encouraged to seek that guidance from perhaps their religion or the church, or there's almost an association with witchcraft and suspicion, and it's still the same now. You use the word intuition, and some people are very uncomfortable with the whole idea that we might have this weird sense of things that we can't necessarily explain. And yet I think it was interesting, because I remember reading that most of the top businessmen in the world I can't remember, some of the most successful companies in the world have all admitted that when they make their big decisions, primarily they use their gut instinct, they use intuition, and then they go and check the facts add up and support that decision. But really big decisions, they're not making them from weighing up the pros and cons and using their intellect. They're tuning into something beyond that, and they know that they can trust that because it's always come through for them. And it's almost maybe the entrepreneur or the maverick or the pioneer just has that personality that's prepared to put a little bit of trust in something that is unknown. And Einstein said the same, one of our best scientists. And he said, the whole complete understanding would pop into my head in a moment's inspiration and intuition, and I'd go away and spend 10 years doing the maths to explain it and support it. So, sometimes there's so much incredible power in tapping into your intuitive self, the guidance, and it cuts through what would take years to work out, maybe lessons that you need to learn. Because the other thing is the intuition could go into your subconscious mind, into that part of your mind that is ruling and running your behaviors and your choices and your actions that you're often not aware of. It's unconscious, it's subconscious. And the tarot and the other keys to the intuition bypass that and go straight in, and they can pull out. You can have something come up in a card, and at first you think, no, I don't like that idea. No, that's not me. No. And then you start thinking, actually, do you know what? Yeah. And you don't like it. Your personality goes, no, but there's a part of you knows, yeah, that's it. It's hitting the nail on the head. That's what you need to look at. That's what you need to work through to move forward. And so what I wanted to do with this talk primarily was just to give you some confidence in maybe using this as one of the keys to the intuition, and just kind of the fear of the tarot, just addressing that fear. It's just tapping into your own intuition, your access to intelligence that's beyond what we can work out in our brain, in our mind, in an intellectual way. So we can answer some questions and things after we do the meditation. And so what I'll do now is we'll move into the group meditation. So if you get yourself comfortable, I'm just going to put an affirmation up on the screen. There. Okay. So make sure that your back is reasonably upright without being too rigid. Ideally, your feet flat on the floor and your hands just comfortably in your lap. When we work in group meditation, it's like we come together as a group, and in doing so, we're much more powerful. And to come together as a group, all that is required is we have that intention. So it's a heartfelt intention that we're going to come together and work as a group for the next 20 minutes or so in meditation toward the greater good. So it's not meditation. I mean, we will get the benefit, don't worry, personally, but it's not meditation that is its primary aim or its focus. It's very much meditation where we're working for the good of mankind in a way of service. So we'll begin with this affirmation of love, because this brings us together and it opens the heart chakra so that we're coming from that place of love for our fellow man. So repeating this quietly to yourself or silently in your mind, or just repeat together the affirmation of love. So in the center of all love, I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Lovely. So just gently close your eyes and just let everything that I have been talking about go. And I want to send a connection to begin with down into the earth under the building in which you are. So imagine that you're sending roots or an energetic connection down either through your feet or through the base of your spine. So we're grounding our energy. And now I want to bring you into this present moment. And we do this by focusing on the senses one at a time. So I just want you to feel your body sitting in the chair. And then just feel the clothes on your skin. Turn your awareness to your hearing and just let sounds come in. And now I want you to take that awareness to your breath. So just notice the breath come into your body and notice the breath leave. And with each breath, I want you to imagine that it's opening a channel right down through the very center of you, so that you can breathe a little deeper until it's comfortable to breathe from your tummy. Now, with your mind, keep a gentle focus on the breath. If your mind is distracted by thoughts, by sounds, by physical feelings, as soon as you realize, just come back to the breath. And come back with loving kindness. So continue to focus on the breath and let it take you into a very quiet place deep inside of you. So your awareness is going inward. Whenever you are distracted, just come back to the breath. Let it take you into the stillness. Thoughts are still running in your mind, but they just flow in, pass by, and flow out. Your focus is on the breath. And now gently bring your focus to the very center of your chest. And I want you to imagine that you are breathing into your heart center, your heart chakra. And I want you to imagine that you're breathing in love and light into your heart center. And this center is gently opening and expanding. And as the center opens and expands, so you are able to connect with the highest aspect of who you are, your highest self or your soul. And now I want you to imagine that you're bringing either a white or a violet, purple or a gold light down through the crown of your head, and it's flowing into all of the major energy centers or chakras in your body. So there are 7 major centers associated with your spine. Bringing them into perfect alignment. Now continue to bring this light in through your crown, and imagine that especially your heart is acting as a vessel to receive and distribute this light throughout your physical body. So it's pouring in through your crown, down into your heart. And from the heart, it's radiating out to every cell in your body. And this light is purifying, cleansing, and healing. Strengthening your immune system and your physical body. Calming and healing your emotions. Clearing and illuminating your mind. Now, as your physical body fills with light, allow it to flow out into the energy field or the etheric body, the aura that surrounds your physical body. So it pours into the crown, into your heart, and radiates out. So you are filled with this light. I want you to imagine that this light is flowing out into your home and those that you live with, all living creatures in your home. Filling hearts and minds with light and love. Now imagine it is radiating out from your home into your street. Again, filling the whole area with light and love. And now let it radiate out into your whole neighborhood. To your heart as a vessel to radiate light and love out into the world. Now I want you to imagine it flowing out into the town or the city in which you live. And at this point, I want you to imagine that your light is joining the light of all of those who are in this group meditation, both those who are in the live session and those who are watching us on the recording. And all of our light joins together and we fill this entire nation with light and with love. And now envision this light flowing out into this part of the world, filling other nations. Now let it flow out until it fills the whole of the northern hemisphere. And now imagine that it is flowing out to encompass the whole of the world. Imagine that our group's light is joining with all groups who are working in this way throughout the world to create a light that is surrounding our entire planet. So if you could see our planet from space, you would see like a beautiful light or aura surrounding her. And as that light flows down into our planet, see it healing her. See it restoring the balance in nature so that our air is clean and fresh. Our waters are pure and clear again. We have a healthy ozone layer and our planet is healed. In your mind, see all the animal and plant life flourishing. And see us developing right relations with the plant, animal, and mineral kingdoms. See mankind developing right relations with our planet, our home. See or feel this light and this love flowing into the hearts and minds of all of mankind. Consciously or unconsciously lifting awareness, lifting the collective consciousness so that we can live in right relation to each other, with ourselves, with our loved ones, between communities, between nations, within the whole human family. So that we can learn to live in peace and harmony and envisage a change in the way that we live. So I want you to continue to hold a space for this energy to pour through you and radiate out. With a gentle focus on your heart, continue to radiate out this energy. Know that we do not stand alone in this work. We are joined by countless others around the world who work in this way. Continue to hold a space for this light, this love to radiate out. If your mind becomes distracted, just bring your focus back to the breath and back to your heart. And now I invite you to gently open your eyes, and on your screen you'll see the words to the Great Invocation, which is a world prayer that is repeated daily by thousands of people all around the world. And the idea is that that constant repeating of this prayer helps to distribute light and love and the will to good or goodwill throughout the world. So I invite you to repeat the Great Invocation with me if you want to. We'll pause between each stanza just to imagine the words playing out. You can repeat it silently or loud. And then we'll finish with sounding the Om 3 times. So we'll begin. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Namaste. Lovely. Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the chance, if you want to unmute if you have questions or comments, or if you don't want to be on the recording, you don't want to ask in person, you can always pop a question in the chat and I will answer that. So, or if you want to speak to me, wave. So I'll let you unmute yourselves. And just any questions you have about what I've talked about today, or any other questions. You're always quite stunned. I think when we work in group meditation, I know I find the energy quite powerful. You've had a lot of energy pouring through your energy system, and that connection with other people is palpable. And it is a powerful way to work. You know, we do know that 15% of people working in this way can raise the vibration, raise the consciousness of the other 85% of people who may not even be aware of, you know, any of this quite happily, but would still like the world to move in the direction that we're foreseeing, if you like. So has anyone got any questions on the tarot or the use of the tarot, or want to tell me some stories about using the tarot maybe? Michael, go for it.
Thank you for a very good introduction to the tarot. That is a genuinely difficult subject, and I think you gave it good credit there. What I would say as well to people wanting to try to understand it is that the conscious mind works kind of in words and thoughts, but the subconscious mind works in symbols. And so that's how the communication happens between the questioner and the answer. And so it's a matter of polarity. You've got a positive and a negative, and they join up through the cards. And so it's the symbolism of the cards that's where the interpretation takes place. And so what you were saying about it being a massively personal thing,
yeah,
it's how the symbol arrives back to you. And that's why choosing the right deck is so important, because it's the style that resonates with you, has got symbolism contained within it that you could relate to.
That's right. That's right. Because I've looked at other decks, and the pictures just don't speak to me. That, you know, the pictures are essentially the same, a little bit different. And I tried using a different one, and I just didn't resonate with that particular deck. And it is very personal. You're right. And it's also between the left and the right brains, because obviously your left brain is very logical, very objective, structured. And so a problem from the left side of the brain would be approached pros and cons, logic, flow diagram, I'll work this out. And for many of life's problems, that works really well. But there are some other life problems you can't do a flow diagram for how I'm feeling about some conflict. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work.
I think that's one of the obstacles.
Yeah, so it gets into the right side of your brain, which works in big pictures, works in symbols, is subjective, is creative. It's where dreams come in. It's where imagery and music and these different ways, or these different intelligences, if you like. So the intuitive, just think of it as another intelligence, and the cards will really start to help to develop it if you haven't used that muscle already. It's like doing a workout.
I'll just add one more thing.
Yeah.
If in the answer coming back to you, if you don't manage to determine it through the cards, the answer will still try and come back to you. And so it may come in the form of dreams, yes, or coincidences, but you've asked the question and you're going to get an answer one way or another.
Yes. Yes, I would agree. And sometimes it's really funny the way that it comes, because I can remember having quite a major question in my mind, and I tried the tarot cards, I tried dowsing, and I was just nothing much is working. I went into a meditation thinking, well, I'll take myself deep into meditation to find this answer. And I was getting really frustrated because the words of a particular song wouldn't get out of my head. It was just playing over and over. And this song had been bugging me for days. And then in the meditation, I listened to the words of the song, and it was perfect. It was the answer. And all day I've been hoovering the house, the songs in my head. I've been going about driving the car, the songs in my head. So life was really trying to help me. I just wasn't listening. So you're right. You're right. If you ask a question, because you ask it from here, you ask it from through the heart, but from your higher self, from your soul. If you genuinely want that answer, and sometimes, to be honest, when people use the tarot, they don't actually want the answer, or they think they want that answer but not that answer. Okay, that won't work. You've got to be open. I genuinely want the answer to this question, and I will be open to whatever it is. And that way the answer will always come. And sometimes you're right, it is in your dreams, and or sometimes you can use the tarot to help with those dreams. Do you know what I mean? You're like, okay, I sort of get the theme of that dream, but what does it really mean? Ask the cards. And it's quite fun. Do you know what I mean? It gives another, and some people use oracle cards or use angel cards, or, you know, any way that you give life or the universe, your higher self, the opportunity to speak to you at will. You've just got to say, here, I want the answer. Oh, speak to me. Is anybody else? Maggie? Yeah.
Hi, Teresa. I'm sorry I was a bit late joining you tonight. What I was going to say is, how can you stop yourself in bringing forth the answer that you want to bring forth? I know you said you've got to rely on your heart, but how is that possible with a set of cards? I don't know.
Okay, good question, really good question. When you shuffle the cards, you have to do so from a place where you are completely trusting. And it almost, if you do find that you wanting the cards to give you a certain answer, or it would pay maybe to do a little bit of meditation beforehand, so that you are in a place where you are really receptive. So we almost need to come into our feminine, receptive yin aspect of us to be open to what's coming. So you need to have got into a place where you're in the space between thoughts. You're in a peaceful place. You're connected deep inside with that stillness, and then you ask. So it would be no good if you're rushing out to Sainsbury's, oh, I'll just have a quick look at the tarot to see the answer to that question. That's not going to work. Do you know what I mean? The state that you're in when you ask that question is important. And that's why quite often, if I have a question, if I might sort of, before I go to sleep at night, if the answer hasn't come during the day, I'll just ask for it to come in my dreams. And if it doesn't, I'll look at the cards first thing in the morning when my mind is quite clear, hasn't got the day, hasn't got busy yet. But in terms of trusting that the answers you need will come, that's just a case of using them, and that relationship and that trust will develop. You can't actually manipulate the cards if you're using it from here.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
Does that answer? Yeah,
yes, thank
good,
you.
good. Does anyone else have, because these questions are important. If you've got a question, it means everybody else is probably thinking the same question. That's how it works. Okay. So I just want those who are live to put their hand up, and those on the recording won't be able to see, but tell me if you have used tarot cards or would like to. Yeah, whoa. Well, 100%, well done. Well, and that is great, because the whole aim of this talk, I'm no expert on tarot. Oh, can I put the title of the books with the recordings? Yes, I will. I'll put the titles. This complete book of the tarot is Anthony Lewis, Llewellyn's, the publisher, and I will put that in the recording detail. And then this other one that I found quite good is Kim Arnold. I like the way she puts things, because she always gives a positive and a negative, and she asks you questions, further questions to explore. And both books give you guidelines on how to do, you know, different spreads that you can do. Like this one has, let's see if there's some pictures. You know, this sort, can you see that? This sort of thing. The different layouts that you can use. And this one, for example, you know, this is the horoscope wheel you use in astrology. So you could do a layout for the different houses if you had your astrological chart and look at the the tie-ups and the correlations between them. So, you know, there's lots to explore. So I'm going to leave it there. Next week, Ted Capstick, esoteric astrologer, is going to talk about the use of the spiritual diary as a key to the intuition, gets into your subconscious. And he's going to talk about it in relation to how it builds. If you remember my talk when I talked about the rainbow bridge that we build between the personality and the soul to help that soul energy come down and infuse our physical, personal, material self. He's going to talk about how that spiritual diary helps to open up and build that rainbow bridge. So that will be interesting next week. So have a lovely evening, and thank you to those who joined us live and for those who are watching the recording. Namaste.